Hey everybody, I'm taking you hiking with me today, and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you guys about something called manipulative inconsistency. And the reason why it's so important to talk about this is because I believe that manipulative inconsistency is actually one of the main the glue that will often prevent us from seeing the truth and getting out of the confusion, and also it's what will make us feel guilty and ashamed for our reactions towards the narcissistic parent. Now, manipulative inconsistency is when a person, like the narcissistic parent for example, will present an image to the world. They will convince you, they will convince the world, they will convince the enablers, and they will convince themselves of how wonderful and how good they are. They will teach you that they will hold this perception about themselves, that they are the most empathetic, amazing, kind, wonderful, big-hearted humanitarians that mean well and that suffer so deeply the sins of others. They will convince the enablers of this. They will convince you of this. They will convince themselves of this. And yet, at the same time, as soon as they are confronted with a different opinion, an uncomfortable emotion, a difficult situation, as soon as they are triggered, they will direct their rage at you, at the chosen scapegoat. They will abuse physically sometimes, right? Psychologically. They will destroy their target by zooming in on their mistakes, their shortcomings. They will magnify and amplify the scapegoat's, flaws. And they will do that to make themselves feel better. They will do that as a way to excuse their need to constantly release that narcissistic rage. So basically, the narcissistic parent will have two faces. And of course, I understand narcissistic abuse can be experienced differently for everybody because there's different types of narcissists, right? So I am telling you this from personal experience, how I experienced it in my home. My mother, one second she'd watch TV and, look at the terrible things that are happening in the world, right? And she would have such an empathetic face when friends would come over and they would be discussing this or that. And yes, such a big heart, so much empathy, so much love, right? But when there was no one home, when there was no one home, she looked for me. She looked for me. She looked for me. I would be sitting in my room. In fact, one of the stories was actually, I'll tell you, I was in the living room and I was like playing a video game or something. And the golden child went to the kitchen and made himself a sandwich. And he left the kitchen. She came downstairs, she saw the mess, she looked at me, and, she unleashed her rage on me. I got a beating, basically. And I was crying. I was telling her it wasn't me who did it. It wasn't me. And, that was that. I was left alone to cry myself to sleep that day. And then the next day the golden child came, and, he noticed I wasn't well, what happened. And I told him what happened. And he said, but I was the one who made the sandwich. So he went to see her. He went to her room. And he said it was me. And she said to him, you don't have to lie for your sister. Stop lying for your sister. I don't care who did it. It doesn't matter. The whole thing was completely dismissed. And, of course, there was no apology. Nothing was ever resolved. And the scapegoat's treatment in that household continued as it always has. And yet, in the same breath, the manipulation tactics are so powerful that in the same breath, she would literally convince everybody that, the reason why she did the thing she does is because she's suffering, because she's such a good person. She's such a good person, and she's a victim of my character, and she's a victim of everything, right? And she's such a good person. And she's so kind to animals, and she's so kind to other children, and she has so much empathy for the news on TV. And so as scapegoats, we're taught, on one end, we are on the receiving end of the narcissist's rage, right? And this is a phase that we experience behind closed doors. And then on the other hand, there's this image that the narcissist will project to the world about themselves. And they will play victim so well that they will really actually convince you that you deserve whatever it is that you got, even though you didn't do anything to deserve it, even though it wasn't your fault. And so we are raised with the narcissistic, dual personality almost, they will, and we will also attach ourselves possibly to the kind gestures that they did on the good day, right? Because that image of them being so good and empathetic is constantly being reinforced. And so when things happen to us, even though it's violence, as children who grew up in this environment, we will learn to feel guilty for not wanting to be around that parent anymore. We will learn that maybe our experiences didn't happen the way they did, because everybody around us seems to have such a, everybody around us is constantly reminding us, they worry about you, and they're so good, and, they've been through stuff in their life, and you have to forgive them, and so on, And so by doing that, our experiences with that parent are completely invalidated. And this is, of course, a form of triangulation, right? Because my narcissistic mother, when I became a young adult and started, eventually when I started to understand narcissism, I distanced myself from her. But, it was the enablers who would always come, and they would say she worries, and she's so good, and she's so wonderful, and she thinks about you, and so on. That image, they will attach themselves to that mask that they wear, that image, and will completely omit the dark side, the emotional dysregulation, the way that they are completely out of touch with reality, and how they impose on you, the scapegoat, to think like they think, and for everybody to be completely out of touch with reality, right? They will, so the scapegoat we fight, we were constantly caught between this dual trap. The narcissist chose the face of kindness and empathy and wonderfulness, and this is what they convinced the world of. And at the same time, behind closed doors, they will release their inner frustrations on the family scapegoat. And that's a side to them that a lot of people don't know about, will never see. And they will think to themselves, you know what? It's impossible that the narcissistic parent would behave like this. They are so good. They are so kind. You know, they are so generous. That's not possible. And so this is how the confusion is created when you're surrounded by people who consistently tell you and show you also, look at what they did. They did this and that. So easy for us to have this deep confusion as to what to do next. Manipulative inconsistency will give you false limiting beliefs that your reactions to narcissistic abuse are wrong, that you're the bad guy, that you somehow deserved the punishment that you receive because they are so good. They are so good, right? So you must have done something to deserve that. Manipulative inconsistency will have everybody focus on the good, like the euphoric recall, right? You will think of the good things it did for you. You will have self-doubt. It will create self-doubt. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe it really is me, because they do seem to worry, right? But remember that this is a dual, it's a face. The narcissistic parent will wear masks, and this is how they get away with abusing their scapegoat and nobody doing anything about it. They are so skilled at presenting a face to the world that when they show you their true face, you're the only one who's seen it, and nobody will believe you. So I want you to remember this manipulative inconsistency, what it is. If you ever feel confusion, self-doubt, if you think to yourself, maybe it's me, is it me? Just remember that these people wear masks, and that is what precisely will create confusion within us, and that what will make us feel like maybe it's us. This is what will create that weight, that heaviness on our shoulders, because it's not clear. It's not like clearly defined abuse. It's not that things are always bad. Things in these types of relationships can sometimes have good moments, good times. And like I said, the fact that the narcissistic parent will reinforce that goodness, and they will make themselves out to be the victim. And they will tell you that they are so bullied by the world. And it's the world who is against them. It's not them. They are good and poor. When you're a good person and somebody behaves like that towards you, you'll have empathy for them. If you don't know that you're dealing with a covert narcissist, you'll have empathy for them. So be mindful of this. And I wanted to share this with you, give you a tip, because whatever good things they might have done for you, whatever face they are showing to the world, is not the face that they have shown you. And gaslighting, of course, will make you doubt your own reality. So keep your feet on the ground. You know what they did to you. You know who they are. Even though no one else saw it and no one else believes you, you know the truth. And so the most important thing that you can do is protect your mental health and do whatever you gotta do to keep yourself safe and to create a distance between yourself and your abuser. And the cards will fall where they fall. All you can do is set your boundaries. You can't control how people will react to your boundaries. All you can do is set them. And Maybe someday the enablers will see. Maybe they won't. But that has nothing to do with your act of protecting yourself and protecting your mental health. Trust yourself. I've always said this in my videos, and I'll say it to you again. Repeat the mantra, I love myself, I trust myself. I love myself, I trust myself. Make that a mantra that you internalize within yourself, so that you can get rid of yourself of any self-doubt that you may feel that is caused by your narcissistic parent. I love myself, I trust myself. I'll see you soon.